This is the Yanks Go Yard Podcast with Adam Weinrib and Thomas Carinante.
Welcome to a Thursday live edition of the Yanks Go Yard Podcast. I'm Adam Weinrib alongside Thomas Carinante. We all wish Barry Bonds had gotten into the Hall of Fame, but somebody related to Justin Verlander had to bring up Babe Ruth making a crazy accusation to argue for Bonds' inclusion in the Hall. So we have to talk about that right up top because I think it's the most I've laughed in 2022 for sure. Also, an Aroldis Chapman trade, more realistic than you might think. We're going to break down exactly why. And a shortstop option the Yankees cannot, will not, should not, must not be trading for, but are apparently in the final four of teams that are interested in him. So we got to break it down. Folks, make sure to find us on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts. Drop us a 5-star review along with a mailbag question. We will be more than happy to answer it. And join us live on YouTube. 2 o'clock Eastern time, Mondays and Thursdays, all off season long. We're going to be summarizing the rumors for you. They better start soon because I've started a lot of episodes in a row by saying we're getting bored. Thomas Carinante, this time I'm no longer bored. I promise you, I have never had more enjoyment at reading a tweet than I did when I saw what Justin Verlander's brother Ben said on Wednesday about Barry Bonds, Babe Ruth in the Hall of Fame. So let's just start there.
Yeah, a great parallel to draw, especially when something's been completely not proven. If that's I know Barry Bonds' steroids allegations secondly haven't been proven, but for Ben Verlander, do you have the screen? You read the screen grab because he deleted the tweet, folks.
He deleted the tweet finally.
Yeah, yes. After more than 24 hours.
Way more than 24 hours. I've never seen anything like this in my life. Insane. There are so many angles you can go to talk about Barry Bonds isn't in the Hall of Fame, but such and such is. You can go with on-field, players like Harold Baines are in the Hall of Fame and Barry Bonds isn't. That seems pretty embarrassing. Bill Mazeroski's in there, Barry Bonds isn't. That doesn't totally line up. You can talk about the early days. Ty Cobb, a lot of accusations of avowed racism there. He's spiking people. He ran into the stands and beat someone unconscious. That happened. That's an argument people bring up a lot with the character clause of Pete Rose and Barry Bonds. Cap Anson, one of the pioneering first basemen of the 1880s, was openly, virulently racist. People bring that up a lot. Ben Verlander chose something I've never seen in my life and hopefully will never see again. His quote, which again, screenshotted for posterity because it took him 24 hours plus to delete it, but in preparation for this podcast, I realized he finally did. It's gone. Ben's tweet, woke up thinking about this, by the way. Woke up? Whoa, this was your first thought this morning? You're getting your morning Joe, making your Eggo waffles, and you woke up. Did you wake up in a start? Like, I got to tweet this thing about Babe Ruth. Or like, did you just wake up and it was kind of the first thing you thought of? Woke up thinking about how Babe Ruth set his poor wife, Helen, on fire. Yet the moral gatekeepers are keeping Barry Bonds, the greatest hitter of all time, out of the Hall of Fame. Babe Ruth, also one of the greatest hitters of all time. He and Bonds are in the same stratosphere. So it's not like you're comparing an inferior talent with allegations against him to Barry Bonds' allegations of steroids. And anyway, anybody who sets their wife on fire isn't in my Hall of Fame. That's somebody who I'm kicking out of my Hall of Fame too, just to be perfectly clear. However, there is no evidence Babe Ruth lit a fire. You certainly didn't light his wife on fire. He didn't approach his wife with fire and then put it on her until she passed away. It was his ex-wife who died in a fire 3 years after they had separated. The fire was in Boston. Babe was in New York after she passed away. It was also a mistaken identity. No one knew she was Babe Ruth's ex-wife. She had established a new life as the wife of this dentist. It was several days before anybody realized it was Babe Ruth's ex-wife. When reached for comment, Ruth was very apologetic. So, I have not spoken to her much lately. This is very tragic. All this is to say there's no indication Babe Ruth is connected to this whatsoever. And somebody asked Ben Verlander in the replies, like, did this happen? What are you talking about? And he was like, yeah, I mean, I don't know, but it's really sketchy timing. And the picture he added, the evidence of the timing being sketchy, was just somebody saying Babe Ruth remarried 3 months later. And again, he wasn't married to this person anymore. She's an ex-wife. So like, I mean, I don't want relationships to end. It makes me sad when a relationship ends, when a marriage dissolves. It's almost as sad as someone being set on fire, but it does happen. And usually when a marriage dissolves, both parties sort of end up finding new love. That does occur. That's normal. Babe had a new partner. So did his ex-wife. And she died in a house that burned down. Really, really sad. Not funny at all that happened. But for Ben Verlander to accuse Babe Ruth of murder yesterday morning, waking up thinking about how Babe Ruth did a murder? What is going on?
That's like the last thing that anybody would ever have thought of when you're
never would have thought of that.
When you're comparing Hall of Fame arguments. Oh, what are the character transgressions we've experienced over time? Oh yeah, Babe Ruth set his wife on fire. He worded it so poorly. It's just psychotic behavior. Not only did he word it, and it's weird because he's so anti-Yankees that he went to the depths to pull I'm not saying this is anti-Yankees, and I'm not saying we're defending Babe Ruth because we're Yankees fans and this is what we have to do to stand up for our team, but like a million other examples that have a lot of weight, that have a lot of evidence behind it. There is no evidence behind this. It's a mere conspiracy based on you connecting the dots as an internet sleuth trying to figure out what may have happened 90 years ago. It's over 90 years at this point. You have no idea what happened. Just because he was separated from his wife and his wife died in a house fire does not mean Babe Ruth A, burned his wife, or B, hired a hitman to light the house on fire. I have nothing else to say other than Ben Verlander is the Jared Carabas of Fox Sports. I can't stand the takes. His discourse on baseball is so bizarre. He'll just start the day being like, hey, what team do you think will be good next year? I'll start the Kansas City Royals. And then it just, here we go. Let's talk about teams that might have a good season next year. Awesome.
Good tweet.
Offering no insight. His claim to fame is breaking his brother's deal this year with the Astros.
Big scoop.
Not even a scoop. I mean, you do you, man, I guess, but like, you do something like that, you're going to be in the crosshairs of criticism. We can't sit here and not address that at all. Hope I don't have to address him again, or bring up anything relative to him in this type of conversation where we're making allegations about somebody 90 years ago again, which I'm sure that the Hall voters also back then were like, they let people in regardless of these insane transgressions. So like, you could have picked again a million other ones that had legs to them, that had plenty of evidence, or like you said, Ty Cobb runs in the stands, beats a fan. That's a thing that happened. People witnessed it happen. Nobody witnessed this happen because there was nothing to witness. I guess there was nothing at all to witness. I know the only reason to compare Bonds and Ruth was because of their accomplishment level. They're both the leaders of a certain statistical category, with home runs and RBIs and all that. But biggest stretch here that you could possibly make. Insane for somebody working at a media company too. I know it's all fun and games on the internet. We like to screw around all the time and make jokes, but like, and I know Babe Ruth's dead, so it doesn't matter. It's not like this is going to come back and be slander on Babe Ruth's reputation, but come on, let's be a little bit more nuanced and maybe a tad more intelligent with our arguments here. Plenty of things and parallels to draw. This was not it. Babe Ruth, folks, did not light his wife on fire. Ex-wife.
I think it's really important to note a couple things. He didn't delete the tweet. I don't know why I couldn't find it earlier, but I went to look at Dallas Braden's replies because I know he had a good one, and it's here. You can all still see Ben's tweet is here. But 12 minutes ago, he replied to his own tweet, allegedly. Just the word allegedly. Allegedly. It's actually not even allegedly. It's just being alleged by you.
Yes.
No one else is alleging this.
Correct.
I guess we do need to say I'd heard of Murderer's Row, but never like this. I guess before we get off the pod. Dallas Braden replied, "This is not a road you want to go down, friend. ... And Ben said, I've been down the Babe Ruth rabbit hole more times than I care to admit. That's obvious. Somebody replied, accusing someone of murder. That's a pretty low level to stoop to because someone you like didn't make the Hall of Fame. Pretty childish, kind of like Bonds not getting the attention he wanted, so he took steroids to get it. And somebody replied in a Red Sox hat in the profile picture, Google it. It's true. Again, card czar Tim, I Googled it. It's not true. Somebody else who I don't want to use their legal name, but their handle is Cudge5. So welcome, Cudge. Responded to somebody else saying, this is not real. Quote, they were legally married and he was wanting to marry another woman. Ruth was the most powerful star in the world. Not saying he did it, but not unlikely that he could have. You can't just go around saying that. You can't say that.
No.
The biggest Mickey Mantle was the biggest baseball star in the world in the 50s. It's not unlikely he orchestrated the JFK assassination. He could have if he wanted to. He had the star power. I mean, man alive. What are we doing here, folks? Yeah, I'm done. I mean, congrats. Ben keeping the tweet up, but replying allegedly with a little asterisk star is one of the craziest things I've ever seen. We're live now. If Ben tweets at me in the next 25 minutes, he can hop on the pod. I would love to hear what Justin Verlander's brother has to say about. We tagged him this morning in the article we wrote about it. I just tweeted out this podcast again. We're live on Twitter. We're live on YouTube. Ben, if you're around, let me know about the Babe Ruth rabbit hole. Because right now, it's pretty slanderous to say. Crazy. And again, the phrasing lit his wife on fire, folks.
Can't even use now. We can't even use allegedly correctly. It's gone from, accusing people of things and using the word allegedly to now just accusing people of things that hold no weight and then sneaking in allegedly in there. Oh no, I protected myself. I said allegedly. No,
I alleged it. Yeah, I can allege whatever I want, but it's Trump. Many people are saying it's like many people are alleging Babe Ruth lit his wife on fire.
All right,
guys, we got to move on. I could do this for another hour, but I won't. Because you know what's going to happen now is the freezing cold takes guy is going to screenshot this with like an old newspaper that claims Babe Ruth actually lit his wife on fire. The 1920s freezing cold takes. Excuse me. Oh, not too hastily, sire. There's actually evidence. Frigid cold yellow journalism telling me that Babe Ruth actually did it. I'm done. I don't want to do this anymore.
No, it's good.
Yeah, I'm having a great time.
Speaking of things that were once upon a time on fire, Aroldis Chapman's fastball. Aroldis Chapman can no longer differentiate himself as a closer. 100 miles an hour isn't quite 105. And Aroldis Chapman's claim to fame back when the Yankees traded for him in a questionable move back in 2016. We didn't like it. A lot of people didn't like it. And then he ended up being here until now. That's been life. Throws triple digits still, takes some time to get there, tried to reinvent himself this year with a slider. Did it work? It did for a little while, and then it stopped. Tried to do a lot of stuff with off speed. Then he had a weird finger issue and kind of went off the rails. So now we're looking ahead, 2022. It's a contract year for Aroldis Chapman. Again, Yankees overpaid him. I don't think anybody would disagree with that. He's making between 16 and 18 million over the course of his tenure here. One AL scout talked to NJ.com as recently as yesterday, I think, and said that he would make Jonathan Loaisiga the Yankees' 2022 closer. Interesting. I don't think a lot of fans would be opposed to that. I am skeptical because Loaisiga has had a lot of growing pains before his career year this past season. So I don't know if he's quite ready to be the closer for an entire season. But he's got the stuff. And he's clearly got the ability because he was placed in a lot of high pressure situations last season and he got the job done more times than not. But now it leads you to believe, what are the Yankees going to do? Are they going to actually do this? Probably not. But if you look at Aroldis Chapman's situation in its totality, trading him really is not out of the question. It's really not. Because why? One, so many teams across the league every single year are looking for an effective closer. Look at the market for closers in the offseason when guys are free agents, and look at the market for closers before the trade deadline. Craig Kimbrell was traded this past year for a tremendous player in Nick Madrigal. We've seen plenty of deals in the past go down where teams are surrendering multiple assets, top 10 prospects for guys who can hold down the fort, even in the eighth inning. Even setup guys go for that high. So now you look at Chapman, it's not entirely likely he would fetch a lot in a trade. He's in a contract year, like we said, making $16 million. But we're talking about the Yankees here, guys. Yankees want to save money. They do. They really do. Again, they're gonna orchestrate some sort of financial gymnastics where they're either minimizing the tax bill or they're getting under again. I hope it doesn't happen, but we don't know what the new CBA is going to do in terms of readjusting these finances. So you look at Chapman's situation, really didn't have that great of a 2021. He was lights out for the first, 2 months? Wheels started coming off in June.
Yeah. Incredible in April. Pretty damn good in May. And then
gave up one run, I think, in his first 20 games. He had a negative FIP like through his first 20 games. It was unreal. Then whatever happened. And you're looking at a situation, and is it that crazy the Yankees trade him? I really don't think it is because, one, he's making all that money. If the Yankees are doing anything in regard to upgrading at first base, at shortstop, in center field, bringing in another starting pitcher, those things are going to cost money. It's hard to find those positions and players on the cheap. You could find relief help on the cheap. The Yankees have done it plenty in the past. Chad Green, Clay Holmes. Speaking of Clay Holmes, if they were to make this switch, Jonathan Loaisiga closer, Clay Holmes setup man. Again, I think a little risky because Clay Holmes was really not great leading up to his trade to the Yankees, but the Yankees, they unearthed something in him, and he was able to do whatever he did during the second half of the season, and it saved the Yankees bullpen. So the Yankees have had a history of going out and getting cost-effective relievers. Loaisiga also being one of them. They traded for him years ago, from the Giants or something, or the Giants cut him and they picked him up. It was something like that.
Yeah.
Either way, they have an eye for this, is all I'm trying to say. Chapman had trade restrictions every year on this extension that he signed. 3-year, 48 extension. 3-year, $48 million extension was like the year before he signed it. He had trade restrictions, and then the first 2 years. Now, it was 2020 and 2021. He couldn't be traded to the 5 teams on the West Coast. So that really took out a big market of his because you look at the Dodgers. I think the Dodgers are a team that would trade for him. Feels like a team that would, especially with Kenley Jansen now hitting free agency. The Angels, perpetually bullpen problems left and right. I'm sure Artie Moreno would pay money for that. The Mariners are now contending. Could they use another guy in the back end of the bullpen after getting rid of Kendall Graveman? Giants, maybe. Probably not, but maybe. A's, not going to happen. So take them out. That's not going to happen. No. You got 4 teams that could realistically do it. And then you look at, you go back 5 years. So when the Yankees traded for Chapman, and then traded him to the Cubs, and then got Gleyber Torres, and then traded him, and then had to sign him again that offseason, they submitted 2 offers to closer free agents that offseason. One was Aroldis Chapman. The other one was Kenley Jansen.
Boom.
Guess who's a free agent this offseason? Kenley Jansen. Will he cost as much as Aroldis Chapman? I don't know. What do you think? I'm not sure he might. I think he might be in the 12 to 14 range. I don't think you're going to be paying 15 or more million for Kenley Jansen. And if the Yankees want to do a short-term deal with him and make it work and save a couple million and get rid of Chapman's contract when they know they might be able to, and they know that they can, rid themselves of the headache because he has been so up and down, whether it's the regular season or whether it's the postseason, that they could rid themselves here if they wanted to upgrade again. The opportunity is there, or they could just go the route of get rid of Aroldis Chapman, save all this money, trade for some relief help with the assets that we have on the roster, and then go from there. Because if the Yankees have the eye for these low cost relievers, and it's possible for them to rebuild the bullpen in a sense, because remember, Zach Britton's not here, and the bullpen survived last year without Zach Britton. If they could figure out a way to lessen Chad Green's workload, emphasize Clay Holmes' strengths, get Wandy Peralta in a more maximized role based on what he was able to do. I know it's a risk because a lot of these guys just had this, jump into prominence where you were like, who's this guy? Don't even know him. Oh, his spin rate's high. Who gives a shit? Great. Okay, then he's 2.2 ERA, 1.05 whip, dominating lefties. Okay, great. So now they have roles for all these guys. You get rid of someone who's holding down the payroll in Chapman, who's one of the, I think, 4 highest paid players on this team. I really don't think it's that insane, especially if they trust Loaisiga based on what this AL Scout's saying. So I don't know. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, the Mariners and Dodgers definitely stand out as the teams most likely to do something sort of crazy like this. The Dodgers do turn nonsense into chicken salad, just like we do in the bullpen. But last year they were just grasping at straws and they pulled Phil Bickford out of nowhere, and they pulled Alex Vesia out of nowhere. And so they've shown a propensity to do that. But do you want to enter October without your closer? Like, you need a closer. If Blake Treinen's your closer, that's great. Then you don't have a guy in the 8th inning. Or you get a genuine stopper and keep Treinen in the 8th inning because he was really good there. I don't know why you're taking a semi-risk elevating Blake Treinen. The Angels did just sign Iglesias again to a 4-year, $58 million deal, but Artie Moreno is crazy. Yeah. December 1st. So who knows if that's just like, maybe Artie's nuts and maybe Aroldis Chapman's going to transition. And, Rysel is a Cuban as well. It's pretty interesting, 1-2 punch in your bullpen. Maybe 1 year of Aroldis Chapman. I don't think they extend him too, but that's something to keep an eye on. I just can't imagine. Kenley Jansen as the Yankees stopper is very interesting for a number of reasons. He did have a resurgence last year. He probably cost whichever team signs him a couple of $1 million over where he probably would have been. But he's aging. I don't think you can rationalize going more than 2 years for Kenley Jansen if you're the Yankees especially. But the most confident I was in the bullpen at any point last year was, granted, it included Luis Severino right at the end of the year. And that's ideally not something that happens in 2022. I don't want Luis Severino in the bullpen ever. But the most confident I was in the bullpen was that September stretch right when I needed to be the most confident. And it was Clay Holmes, Loaizaga, Wandy Peralta, Michael King all of a sudden. None of the people I wanted to see come in from the bullpen was Aroldis Chapman. Chapman was absolute bottom of that totem pole, right by Chad Green, who's going to be a free agent too. And I think if the Yankees are smart, they're also entertained trading Chad Green this offseason when things open back up, because they've proven. I don't want to go into the postseason with a bunch of names who've never had closer pedigree. It's not ideal. It's not my goal, but they lost Zach Britton. They adjusted on the fly. And when they adjusted on the fly, Chapman was the guy I absolutely did not want to see come in a close game. Again, basically neck and neck with Chad Green. So anything you can do to get those numbers off the books this year, which Green is still pre-ARB, mid-ARB, pre-extension. He's just, a controllable asset. Chapman is someone who's been extended at a very high price tag. I still can't believe they renegotiated his contract after 2019. I was just ready to say goodbye. I was ready to take the hit. At that point, it would have been kind of annoying to lose Chapman, have his last moment on the mound be the Altuve homer. 2020, you really want a pedigree. Same deal with this year. You want a pedigreed closer in there. And I was like, well, I'd rather have Chapman than not have him, but I guess because of the money, I'll have to make that sacrifice. Then the Yankees went out of their way to just bend over and pay him again. And it was like, what are we doing here? That's a lot of money for Aroldis Chapman. Like, you just escaped the Aroldis Chapman contract, and then you gave yourself a longer Aroldis Chapman contract. So whatever they can do to get him off the books, we said this, we said they should do this last year. He came out with a splitter and made us all look like fools, and then had the worst June of his life. Like, the finger issue notwithstanding, I don't know what that issue is. It seemed to never correct itself. It seemed to be months on end that he had some sort of fingernail problem. That June was, if you weren't already soured on Chapman's inconsistency, that June should have done it for you. That was an unwatchable stretch. And, his meltdown against the Angels at 2 a.m. did cause me to declare the season over for the first time. And I still think that's reasonable. That's the kind of thing you don't come back from. And again, at the end of the year, kind of was what ended the season, because they ended up 1 game behind the Red Sox. And if they'd won one of the easiest to win games, it was harder to blow that lead than it was to blow the 7-2 lead in Houston. Houston's a scary place. Astros hit.
Yankees bullpen was decimated at that point. Everyone was on the COVID list.
Loaizaga was out. That was much easier. I mean, it hurt a lot. It hurt a lot, but it was easier to blow that than 7-3 against the Angels, when the Angels have spent the whole game, basically not putting up runs. It's been 5 innings since they've done anything, and then suddenly at 2 a.m, they're hitting game time grand slams and then beating Lucas Licky. I digress. Anything we could do to get Chapman off the team, the better. Talking Yankees trade options at this point, I prefer talking Yankees trade options when they're, get Chapman out of here, figure out another way to handle the bullpen. I'd rather not talk about them when the Yankees are among the 4 finalists for Diamondback shortstop Nick Ahmed, but it appears that they are. That's another stopgap we've heard over and over again. And this is just MLB trade rumors. It's not necessarily like talks are heating up, because of course they're not. They can't. But MLB trade rumors was the latest one to connect Nick Ahmed to the Yankees. He's a defensive wizard in short, or at least he was. Now he's 32 years old. He's never hit, not just at an above average level, he's never hit at a league average level, which I don't need a superstar offensive shortstop. That guy licking league average would be really helpful for me. I don't want to just import bats, but the way the Yankees offense was last year, they were dreadful outside of Judge and Stanton and Anthony Rizzo for a couple weeks. I'm not bringing in a guy who's guaranteed to hit way below average. Like, I'm just not biting that bullet. Not everybody has to be a superstar, but I can't just walk into the season knowing I have someone who's not going to produce offensively. The Ahmed teams that are in the finals, the Yankees, all four teams who should be very disappointed if this is where their offseason ends up because of the other rumors connected to them. It's the Yankees. It's the Chicago Cubs, who I don't know who's going to sign Carlos Correa at this point. The Cubs have as much of a chance as anybody. And if they end up with Nick Ahmed, I'd be very upset by that. The Astros themselves, who, are probably the favorites for Correa on a 2 or 3 year fat deal. And if they're not, they're the favorites for Trevor Story, and Nick Ahmed shouldn't be entering their conversation. And the Phillies, who, if they get rid of Didi Gregorius just to trade for Nick Ahmed, an upgrade by what, 3%, 4%, and the upside is higher with Didi. It's more likely he gets back to a level of above average production than it is Nick Ahmed does it for the first time in his life. The OPS plus numbers, he had a 67 OPS plus last year. It's Andrelton Simmons level. Hit 16 and 19 bombs and 1 Gold Gloves in 2018 and 19. And he was an 83 and a 93 in OPS plus those 2 years. So no extra base power in a stadium where, the Diamondback Stadium, you can hit for extra bases pretty easily there. And again, 16 and 19 homers to hit 16 homers and be at an 83 OPS plus shows that none of your profile it screams bad hitter, even in years where you have this fringe average home run output. So just want to put it out into the world that no, I am not on board with that. And it's Andrelton Simmons-y for me, frankly.
Yeah, and it's not even a bargain. He's making a lot of money. He's making almost $8 million next year, and then he's on the hook for almost $10.5 million the year after that.
Yep.
And you're talking about surrendering players because you're not just going to get. They're not just going to say, "Here's Nick Ahmed, take him. Here you go." It's not going to work like that. So you're surrendering players and or assets for $18 million over the next 2 years for a guy. And you want to get into another statistic, WRC plus, he hasn't registered a figure above 90 in his entire career outside of the shortened season. The shortened season 2020 was 96. Every other year was 90 or below. And every other year aside from 2019 was below 84. Not good. I understand there are some things to talk about here. The D-backs in recent years have really not been good. So what are you going to do? You don't have a lot of people around you to pad the lineup. You're not able to see more pitches than you'd be accustomed to. However, the D-backs were kind of good before 2018 and for a few years before 2018, and he still wasn't. So they had a line. JD Martinez was on that team when they surged ahead and went to the playoffs. He's still registering those bad numbers. And look, I don't need him to be an all-star on both sides of the ball. I understand his defense might be good, but it's not that good, especially if you're looking at other advanced metrics. He had his two best seasons in 2018 and 2019, and then when you look at defensive runs saved and ultimate zone rating, and then those numbers have plummeted over the last 2 years. I know the last 2 years have been trying because of the pandemic, and then because of 2021, which was coming off of that, and then the D-backs are in full rebuild mode. So perhaps a change of scenery helps this guy. I don't know. It's just not worth what it is. Once again, I would rather them start a prospect at shortstop and not give up anything. I don't want that to happen, but at this point, if we're talking about getting guys on, if we're talking about getting stopgaps or trading for other options, like you said, a fat deal for Correa from the Astros. Why can't we do that? Why can't we do a 2 or 3 year fat deal for Correa and then bring the prospects up when they're ready to go? I don't see any value in getting Nick Ahmed because, look, you either need to be an all-around good player to take over at shortstop because shortstop's a very important position, or you need to be a complete defensive whiz where nothing is getting by you, or you need to be what Gleyber Torres should have been last year. Gleyber Torres should have been bad at defense and making up for it with 30 home runs. Gleyber Torres was bad at defense and made up for it with no offensive production. So if there's no give and take on either end there, that's when it's a problem. And if Ahmed's defense is not as good as it was 2-3 years ago, then there's no value in bringing him in if he's also not going to hit, because I don't see how he's going to lengthen the lineup. Once again, could be a different story if he's surrounded by better hitters, but there's no evidence to suggest that when he did have good hitters with him. So trading for somebody to inherit that much salary, unless the D-backs are eating some there, which I don't think a small market team like them is going to want to eat money on a deal that it's like, because they don't need to get rid of them. They're great. This is our shortstop for the next 2 years. We could figure out a million other things to upgrade the roster. Great. We could stick with him. No reason for them to bend over backwards here to help out the Yankees. Especially when the Yankees took Gregorius from them, and that was some of their best years with him at shortstop after the Jeter era. But yeah, I don't see any value here. I understand, once again, we're getting into the depths. We're connecting them to everybody. Shortstop here might be on the move. Great. Could go to the Yankees. Yeah, could. Anything could happen. A lot of things happen that probably shouldn't. This really can't happen. Really cannot happen. Fans will be very, very mad. I think they might be more mad if this happened than if Andrelton Simmons happened, to be honest, because then you're going to start looking into this. You're going to start looking into the numbers here. You pay Andrelton Simmons 1 year for $4 million and he plays shortstop. Okay, great. You trade for somebody for $18 million over 2 years and he's Andrelton Simmons-esque. People are going to get really, really pissed off.
Yeah, something I'm never going to do is trade for a defensive wizard who's 32 and getting older. I'm just never doing that. I appreciate what Nick Ahmed did in his prime.
Yeah.
Prime's over, and he might have been a valuable player in 2018. When people started connecting him to the Yankees, by the way, because of Didi's Tommy John and the fact that they were going to start 2019 with a vacancy, people started beating this drum again. Now is not the time. And he's also a Massachusetts native, by the way, in case you think the little intangibles matter. I'm not bringing Nick Ahmed in to restart the New York Yankees when he goes to sleep every night being like, I wish I was on the Boston Red Sox. He's not doing it. Sorry, best of luck. That stuff matters to me. And the player's not good. According to the numbers, the player's not good. Cool. So there you go. That is it for this edition of the Yanks Go Yard podcast. Make sure to find us on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts. Drop us a 5-star review along with a mailbag question. We'll be more than happy to answer. And join us live on YouTube on Mondays and Thursdays, 2:00 Eastern time, to talk Yankees all off season long. We're going to adjust that schedule when the regular season begins. We're going to do live reaction shows to big games. You're going to watch us on Sunday Night Baseball. We're going to be talking, on-field developments. That'll be great. So a couple of people just joined the stream. If either of you are Ben Verlander, please write it in the chat, because I'll stick around for a little while longer. I won't end the episode just yet if either of you are Ben Verlander. I'll tell you that right now. But until next time, I'm Adam Weinrib. You can find me on Twitter at Adam Weinrib. Thomas Carinante, where can the good people find you?
Look at it right there at Tommy's_takes. We're having a good time on Twitter, doing what we can. Head on over to yanksgoyard.com. Our bylines are there. Off-season content. We got some cool lists coming out. Formulating some ideas based on what happened last year, what we can improve on this year, who needs to step up this year, what trades might be made. All fun. Talk to us on the official Yanks Go Yard Twitter account at Yanks Go Yard FS. And folks, the next time we'll talk to you Monday, 2 p.m. right here, also on Twitter. Enjoy your weekend and stay safe and be healthy. That's what life's all about, baby.
Yeah, you're going to like your weekend content. I guarantee it. That's a little Men's Warehouse quote. Enjoy Championship Sunday. 2 weeks from now, Super Bowl action. We'll probably be previewing that on the Yanks Go Yard podcast because, again, it's the place that pays us to talk, and the Yankees just ain't here. So we'll be talking Super Bowl too. We'll see everybody on Monday at 2:00.